Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and continuing on with these phases of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, I want to talk through the early game and what you should be farming. This is not necessarily a farming guide, or at least not a traditional one. The reason I don't like farming guides is because I think they've turned into something that players use improperly. They've turned into this checklist. Okay, I did this check, I did this check, 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 check. And then players end up realizing that that was a mistake because those farming guides, the minute that they are released, start losing value. Not saying that it's a crazy thing, but they lose value because the game changes. And because of how fluid this game is now, farming guides don't have that same weight outside of a certain point. So what I've tried to do is create guides that, hey, these are the best things to farm early, and that way by the time you're getting into that middle part of the game, your account has the foundations that you can build from and be successful. So again, this is going to be for those early game players. Hey, here's the things I'd be working on. Here's mistakes to avoid. And I'm going to show you guys just how important it is that you pay attention to what you're gearing and what you're farming and think big picture. So please go ahead, like and subscribe, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. I got to give a shout out to my channel members for their continued support, and I've given you guys a lot of advice lately, whether in the Discord or DMs, and I got to say I love it. You guys are asking some amazing questions and deserve a lot of praise for that. I will give you the credit that it's not often that I'm in that members only section and there's some like stupid question that needs answered. It's always one that I feel is worthwhile answering and benefits the group. So I really appreciate you guys keeping my life interesting. Thank you again. Let's get in here. Let's talk about the early game guide to success. Alright, so first things first, you've got to get off on the right foot, and the best way to do that is build the Phoenix team. The Phoenix team is still the best early game team to farm. They are extremely accessible, you're going to get them quickly, and they are long-term benefit. That is one of the biggest changes that Captain Rex brought into the game. This is a long-term benefit team. Captain Rex made this team so much more valuable long-term that you can take them beyond Gear 8, and it's not a waste of gear anymore, that it is worth investing in this team. I'm not saying you take them to relic levels right away, but if you bring them to not Gear 9, Gear 10, Gear 11, it's not the end of the world. They're a solid team and will do work for you in Grand Arena, Conquest, territory battles, territory wars, whatever the game mode is, this team will do work for you for a very long time. So absolutely worth the investment. This is the first thing you want. This is the first team you want to focus. The other thing you need to do first is get Executor going. Listen, I don't need to get into the, all right, farm this character, farm this, farm this, farm this. That is literally what the journey guide is for. If you go click on the journey guide and say, I want to get Executor, it will tell you exactly what you need to farm, right? The only thing you need to remember here is see how the ships say, 4 stars? It's 7, okay? You got to have them at 7 stars. Because if you click on the event, see here, 7-star. So just bear in mind, it does need to be 7-star. That is a fun little fact there. But overall, you can follow the journey guide and it will get you exactly what you need. So get Executor first. Look at the requirements, figure out what you need to do to get them. That is the most important thing. And again, I do have on my, a 2024 free-to-play farming guide, and I would say that it's still relatively current. It still works well. I'm going to kind of share it here quickly. Let's go to my screen capture, and let's go here. Again, this will be linked in the video description if you want to go check it out, but it's got all the stuff that you would need. It's got general ideas. I'm not saying that you need to go step by step by step. People love this for some reason. You don't need to go step by step by step here. Just kind of use this as a basic framework of these are the things you can do. I'm not recommending that you do every single little thing here to get where you need to go. Just figure out what works for your account. But the general concept here is that, yes, you can do these things and you're going to be in good shape, right? That's the biggest thing I can tell you is, hey, you'll be in good shape. This is the general framework, and it will get you where you need to go, right? So, again, I'll link that below. There's a video on it as well. Biggest thing I can tell you is Executor first. And then what you're going to do after getting Executor is build the Commander Luke Skywalker team. That if you haven't done it already, that's the most important thing, that you want to get the Commander Luke Skywalker team built immediately after Executor if you don't already have it done. The biggest reason for this is because you're going to start going for Jedi Knight Luke, and you want to have complete teams. When you're in the early game, the most important thing you need to bear in mind is maximizing your relics. You need to put your account in a position that every relic you are equipping, every gear piece you're equipping is maximized, is optimized, is going towards something that is going to benefit you. It's one of the big reasons I try to steer players away from farming Kylo and Sith Eternal early. It's not that there's, oh, well, if I'm only investing in First Order, that's going directly towards Kylo. But a lot of those characters do not benefit you enough that they're worth it compared to some of the other characters. And Kylo himself is not nearly as good as some of the other Galactic Legends with just as much bloat. So we're going to kind of use that logic of, hey, we're okay with bloat as long as what we're getting is superior. And that kind of makes sense because we're going for Jabba. You're going for Jedi Knight Luke, which leads into Jabba. So this is the next stage, is getting Jabba, right? Jabba is the end goal after your Executor, Jedi Knight Luke, Jabba. And the reason, again, talking about this maximization of relics is because then you can go right towards Jedi Master Luke or Leia Organa. And even to an extent, if you get Jedi Knight Luke, a lot of his requirements overlap with Leia and Jedi Master Luke. So even if you get Jedi Knight Luke and then you're like, hey, Phil, maybe I just want to go for Leia instead, I'm not going to fault you. You're probably pretty well set up to do that. Or you could go for Jedi Master Luke, and you're still pretty well set up to do that and still could get Jabba at some point. Like, the amount of overlap between these farms cannot be understated. So you maximize your relics by doing this, right? So that's it's your framework. You're trying to maximize your relics. You don't want to get caught up in, hey, Phil, when should I farm my Imperial Trooper team or this ship or that ship? Like, just as long as you're sticking with the basic concept of going in this direction, you're going to be fine with whatever else you want to do on the side. I think a lot of times what players get confused with, and where a lot of them make the mistakes in the early game, is my boss and I, we used to have this saying that everybody gets so worried about, like imagine building Thanksgiving dinner, right? You're creating Thanksgiving dinner. And everybody gets so worried about folding the napkins that we've got to have the napkins folded perfectly, and then the turkey's on fire in the oven. Because you're so focused on these little details that you're losing sight of the big picture. As long as your big picture is good, you cannot do that much damage to your account in the early game. Like if you went and built your Imperial Trooper team instead of, say, a Geonosian team. Whatever, right? That's not not a big deal. Or you built, Star Killer instead of Bo-Katan, Mandalore, or Inquisitors. Not a big deal. Oh, you went and got Padme. Not a big deal. You went and built Sith Eternal instead of Jabba, we got some questions. Or you completely skipped Executor, and then we got some problems. But the little details, it's not as important, right? Oh, I want to invest in Grief and Mando. All right, that's fine. Take a little bit of time to do that. So as long as you keep the overarching idea of these 3 GLs as the first 3 things after Executor, you're going to be in really good shape. The entire goal of my free-to-play farming guide was putting you in a position that your first your first year and a half, 2 years of playing SWGO, however long it takes you to get these things, which it's not going to take you nearly as long as it used to, you don't need a roster review. You don't need massive amounts of farming advice. Roster reviews are something that can be really good, but you do not need them when you're still in the middle of a farming guide. And that's why I kind of stop at this point, because once you get to this point, you've built the foundations of your account, you're probably into hard mode conquest, and now it's time to figure out where to go. That's when you need a roster review. Before this point, roster reviews do nothing for you because somebody's just going to reiterate of getting the stuff that you're close to, And then what I will say is in the early game, you do want to try to close it out with getting your Inquisitors. Inquisitors are one of these factions that the importance is continuing to get more and more focused early on. So I would get your Inquisitors sooner rather than later, especially with Scythe and TIE Interceptor in the Proving Grounds. It's going to be really important that you have that faction. And this, again, is a free-to-play guide, so you buy Lightspeed bundles and you're freaking good to go, right? What the hell are we doing here then, So I want to show you, a lot of you are sitting there like, Phil, this is so much gear, like, I'm not going to be able to do all that. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me just show you something. So I'm going to click over here to a farming guide, or so this is the SWGO events page. This SWGO events gear, And what you can do is click on various characters, and it will break down what the requirements are to obtain them. So on this page, we've got Kylo, Sith Eternal Emperor, Jedi Knight Luke, Beskar Armor Mando, Executor, and Jabba the Hutt. That you're building Jabba, Slicker, Sith Eternal, and the stuff, Jedi Knight Luke because you need him. This is not counting the GLs or Jedi Knight Luke himself, right? This is it's counting Jedi Knight Luke himself. It's not counting the GLs. You would need to spend all of these relic materials right here. If you look at all the relic materials there, do you guys see that? That's what you would spend. So again, it's a pretty significant, expenditure there. That's not a small amount of gear, right? You look through that 7,400 carbonite circuit boards, 1,400, flawed signal data, and then when you look at just the gear itself, I mean, you're looking at 4,500 Kyrotech, shock prod Kyrotech, and 2,500 down here computer Kyrotech, and then a lot of core gear. The other thing you got to keep in mind is all the relic pieces that you would need to equip. That Gear 13 gear. That's the other side of the equation here because you're building a lot of characters across those couple of farms. Now I want to flip over to this page. This one, which many of you will kind of laugh at, we're going to have Jedi Master Luke, Jedi Knight Luke. You're going to build Beskar Armor Mando, Executor, Jabba the Hutt, and GL Leia. The first thing you should notice, look at how many more characters you're building for Sith Eternal and Kylo and Jabba compared to JML, Leia, and Jabba because of the overlap. So right away, it's less characters you're having to invest in. It's also less relic materials. Look at the relic materials here. Less carbonite circuit boards needed, less bronzium wiring needed. Chromium transistors are roughly the same. And then you are going to need to spend, I think, a little bit more electrum conductors, some of the higher relic materials because you're adding in an extra relic 8 farm, and a little bit more of the blue signal data while spending less of the white and, the white signal data. So, again, pretty similar overall in terms of the relics, right? It's not that much harder to get to this point. Now, you are going to spend more Kyrotech farming Leia and Jabba and Jedi Master Luke than you would if you're farming Sith Eternal and Kylo. But how to think through that is it's less gear pieces. It's less relic pieces. Look at the fusion furnaces here. The Mark 12 here. What is that? 1,900 compared to, where is it down here? 2,300. We've got these hollow lenses and the data cards here, right? 1,700 and 1,600. And you come down here and we've got 1,400 and 1,100. So the big thing with going for Jabba, Leia, JML is, yes, you might be spending a bit more of your relics, but because you're not touching as many characters, because you're not having to farm as many characters, that's less credits, that's less relic gear. And that opens up the door for more time to farm other things. So the player who farms Sith Eternal and Kylo, maybe they get them faster than you would, say, get Jabba and Leia. But then they're starting fresh every single time where you're kind of building on the foundations of everything else that you've built before. And you're going to end up with a far better roster with Jabba, Leia, JML compared to Sith Eternal, Kylo, and Jabba. One, it's all dark side, but two, the teams you're going to build here are far weaker than the teams you're going to get here. Right? You're going to have a lot better teams here, a lot better GLs, a lot more access to things. So, what am I showing you? That the Flat Fill Farming Guide is good, right? I'm also showing you that the mistake players make in the early game is they think too small, right? You sit there and you fold your napkins. Oh, well, fold the napkins, and you lose sight of that big picture that spending a little bit more up front gets you to where you are a lot faster. You're maximizing the relics. The relics you're spending here, they're kind of all culminating into these 3 GL farms with far less gear invested than if you go here. And that's what I mean by, when I say foundation, that you've built this foundation so that way you can springboard into other areas and be successful. So I know it sounds like a lot, and you're like, oh my gosh, Phil, I'm going to be so long in the early game. Yes, you are. That's kind of... This game is not a sprint. This game is a marathon. This takes a long time. There are people who have been playing this game for almost 10 years. This game has been going on for 9.5 years. So if I tell you that the early game takes 2 years, you should not balk at that. That's the truth. Like, that's where you're at. And you can speed that up with Lightspeed bundles and other spending, but from a free-to-play perspective, that's the truth. That's what it's going to take. And so the time you spend at that point, if you're farming these things here, you're going to be much more set up for success because you've built things that come together that are going to allow you to springboard. Because once you get into that middle part of the game, some of those newer farms start to creep into your account. All of a sudden, you've got to be able to pivot to, hey, maybe Bo-Katan at the current time. Or if this new Bad Batch team becomes really good and needed for something, that needs to be able to be a conversation you can have of, all right, maybe I'm not going to build the new Bad Batch, but I can go get Balin. Just food for thought when you're in the early game. Again, I know I'm kind of like preaching at you guys, and you know, you heard that roster reviews aren't really that helpful for you, but it's the truth. You know, a lot of you just need to take a step back, and instead of getting caught up in the details of this character and this character and this character and this and this and this and this and this, just what is your overall objective, right? And I tell a lot of players, you can make up, you know, oh, instead of building, you know, you didn't build your Phoenix first, you built your Imperial Troopers. Okay, that's fine. As long as they're getting you to the same point where you're building Executor, it's not a problem. The problems arise when you try to deviate too much, and then you, oh, Phil, I didn't, you know, instead of going Executor first, I decided that I wanted to build Inquisitors like Justin, but now I'm lost because I don't know how to farm, right? Or I can't, you know, they're no good, and it's like, well, yeah, you know, you're not Justin, and Justin's crazy, and, you know, his accounts are stupid. But you get what I mean? That, like, you can deviate from this as much as you want. Just then recognize that you've got to be prepared for whatever consequences, both good and bad, come from that. And you've got to be able to work through it. So following a farming guide can at least help a content creator know where your account is and offer advice and insight. And also what it will do is, again, give you that framework, right? That guidelines. You know, think of like Pirates of the Caribbean when they talk about the pirate code and what is that, the third one. Shout out to my friend Gilby. Those are his favorite movies. They say, oh, you know, we think of them more as guidelines. Or the first movie, it's like, they're guidelines anyway. They're not actually rules to follow. It's guidelines. And that's what farming guides are. It's guides. It's guidelines. It's not a check-the-box exercise. It's a, hey, here's the general framework. Tweak this however you want for your own self. But as long as you're following the main objectives, you're going to be fine by, maximizing the relics that you're investing to build the best account possible. So I hope this helps. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.